The sun had long since dipped below the horizon, leaving only the faintest traces of twilight. The air was thick with the scent of pine and the distant hum of night insects. The village, hidden deep within the mountains, was unlike any other. It had no electricity, no modern luxuries. The only sources of light were flickering torches and the dim glow of fireflies dancing in the air. The village was ancient, its wooden houses perched on stilts, surrounded by dense forests that seemed to whisper secrets of old. Among the many small houses was one particularly ominous structure. A large stone house with ivy creeping up its walls, its windows dark and brooding. The air around it was heavy, suffused with an aura of both mystery and danger. In the village square, there stood a gathering. A group of men and women, dressed in tattered clothes, murmured among themselves, casting wary glances at the large stone house. At the center of the gathering stood a woman, her eyes burning with a fierce intensity. Her name was Lyra, and she had lived in the village for as long as anyone could remember. However, what most didn't know was that Lyra was not truly one of them. She was an outsider, sent to the village on a mysterious mission that she had yet to fully understand. Lyra's eyes scanned the crowd, taking in the grim faces and the whispers that filled the air. There was something wrong about this place. The village had always been quiet, peaceful even, but lately, it had taken on a strange, unsettling tone. People were disappearing. Animals were found mutilated, their bodies drained of blood. Strange symbols appeared overnight, etched into the bark of trees and the stones scattered across the land. Tonight, the village elders had gathered once more to perform a ritual, but this time, Lyra was determined to uncover the truth. She had come to the village seeking answers to the mysterious deaths that had plagued her family for years. Her father, a renowned scholar, had vanished in these very mountains when she was just a child. She had grown up with only stories of his research into the supernatural, but now, it seemed, the truth was waiting for her in the heart of this cursed place. Lyra approached the elder who stood at the front of the gathering. His name was Eldrick, the leader of the village, and the one who held the secrets of the land in his ancient, gnarled hands. Eldrick, Lyra said, her voice steady but laced with a sense of urgency. It's happening again, isn't it? The disappearances, the strange symbols. What are you hiding from us? The elder's face remained unreadable as he looked at her, his pale blue eyes boring into hers. Lyra, he said in a voice like gravel, you've always been too curious for your own good. Some things are better left unknown. The mountain holds its secrets for a reason. Lyra's pulse quickened. She was used to this, the cryptic warnings, the hushed voices. But this time, she could feel it in her bones. The answers were within her reach. She wasn't going to back down now. I need to know, Eldrick. What's happening to this village? What happened to my father? She demanded, her voice rising with emotion. Eldrick sighed, his weary eyes softening for a brief moment. Your father? He was looking for something. Something ancient, something powerful. He wasn't the first to seek it out. There were others before him. And they, too, disappeared. What was it he was looking for? Lyra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The elder hesitated before replying, a relic. An artifact said to hold the power to control life and death. It was lost centuries ago, buried deep within the mountains. But whoever seeks it, they never return. The land doesn't allow it. Lyra's heart raced. The artifact her father had been searching for. Could it be the key to all the strange occurrences in the village? Could it explain the monstrous creatures that had been sighted near the village and the eerie coldness that had begun to seep into the very air? Before she could press further, a shrill scream tore through the night, sending a wave of panic through the gathered villagers. They turned in unison, their faces a mix of terror and disbelief. Lyra's breath caught in her throat as she followed their gaze. There, standing at the edge of the square, was a figure tall, cloaked in shadow, its eyes glowing a sinister red. It was a figure from her nightmares. The same figure she had seen in her dreams, standing at the foot of her father's grave. The figure that had haunted her thoughts since her childhood. Lyra, run! Eldrick shouted, his voice cracking with fear. But Lyra didn't run. Instead, she stood frozen, her gaze locked with the figure in the distance. The air around her seemed to grow colder, the very earth beneath her feet trembling as if it were alive. The figure stepped forward, its presence overpowering, and Lyra knew, deep down, that the time had come. The time to face whatever dark force had been awakened in the village. The villagers, paralyzed with fear, stood frozen in place as the figure approached. Its form seemed to ripple and shift in the shadows, as if it were made of the very darkness itself. The air grew even colder, and the flickering torchlight around the square seemed to waver and flicker as if struggling to remain alight. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from the figure. Her father's words echoed in her mind, "Some things are better left undisturbed, Lyra. The mountains hold their secrets for a reason." But she wasn't about to back down now. Not after all this time. Not after all she had learned. The figure stepped closer, its presence overwhelming, and Lyra could feel the weight of its gaze, as though it were studying her, waiting for something. "Who are you?" Lyra demanded, her voice trembling but determined. "What do you want?" The figure did not speak at first. Instead, it extended a hand, long, bony fingers, as if beckoning her forward. The air around her seemed to vibrate with an ancient, unseen energy. Lyra hesitated for a moment, but then, driven by an overwhelming force, she stepped forward, her footsteps slow but deliberate. "I am the one who has been waiting," the figure finally spoke, its voice deep and echoing, as if it came from far beyond the physical world. "You, Lyra, are the key to unlocking the darkness that has lain dormant for centuries." Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know who or what this being was, but it knew her name. It knew her past. "I don't understand," Lyra replied, her voice shaky, though she stood her ground. "What do you want from me?" The figure's eyes glowed brighter, the red light now blinding. It stepped forward, and the ground beneath them trembled. The villagers, who had been watching in stunned silence, now began to retreat, panic spreading like wildfire. "You have come searching for answers, just as your father did before you," the figure continued, its voice now colder. "But the answers you seek will not bring salvation. They will only bring destruction. You are connected to the relic, to the artifact your father sought, and to the darkness that follows it." The words echoed in Lyra's mind. Her father's disappearance, the relic, the artifact, it was all beginning to make sense. But what did the figure mean by destruction? Lyra's mind raced, piecing together fragments of her father's journal entries, stories of the artifact that could control life and death. Had he been searching for it to protect the village? Or had his curiosity led him down a path of ruin? The figure's hand rose again, and this time, Lyra felt a sudden, intense pull toward it. The shadows around her seemed to move, swirling with an energy she had never felt before. She struggled against it, but the pull was too strong. Her body lurched forward, and just as she was about to fall into the figure's grasp, a loud crack pierced the air. The villagers gasped, and Lyra turned her head to see Eldrick standing at the edge of the square, his staff raised high, a magical barrier shimmering in the air around him. The figure recoiled slightly, its glowing eyes narrowing. "You will not take her," Eldrick said, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. "Lyra is protected by the forces you cannot control." The figure snarled, its face contorting in rage. It seemed to momentarily lose its composure, but then it let out a low, menacing laugh. "Protection," it sneered. "The forces you wield are weak, old man. You cannot stop what has already begun. The relic will awaken, and with it, the end of your village will come." As the figure spoke, the ground beneath them cracked open, and Lyra felt a sudden rush of cold air, as if the very earth were exhaling its last breath. Eldrick's barrier wavered, and Lyra realized with horror that the village was beginning to crumble. Pieces of the stone square started to break away, falling into the dark abyss that seemed to open up beneath them. "No!" Eldrick shouted, slamming his staff into the ground. "We will not let this happen." Lyra, her heart racing, found herself torn between the pull of the figure and the desperation in Eldrick's voice. The world around her felt like it was falling apart, and she could no longer tell where reality ended and the supernatural began. "Eldrick!" she cried, her voice hoarse. "What do I do? How do I stop this?" Eldrick's eyes flickered with a mixture of fear and resolve. "The artifact," he said urgently. "You must find it. Your father's journal holds the key. Only by unlocking its power can you stop the coming darkness." Lyra's mind spun. The journal, her father's journal. She had it hidden away in her bag. But how could a mere book stop this powerful entity? The relic is the key, the figure's voice rang out again, sharper now, almost mocking. But you will never reach it in time. The darkness is already spreading. It will consume this place, and when it does, the rest of the world will fall. Before Lyra could respond, a loud crash echoed through the square. The ground beneath their feet split wide open, sending Lyra tumbling toward the darkness below. She screamed, her heart pounding in her chest, but just as she felt herself falling into the abyss, a strong hand grasped her wrist. She looked up to see Eldrick, his face pale but determined. "Hold on, Lyra," he shouted, his grip tightening. "I will not let you go. We will fight this together." The figure above them laughed again, its form flickering like a dying flame. "You cannot fight what has already been set in motion." But Lyra wasn't listening anymore. With Eldrick's hand pulling her up, she felt a surge of energy course through her veins. The journal, her father's journal, she had to get to it. She had to uncover its secrets before it was too late. And in that moment, something inside her snapped into place. The relic, the artifact, it wasn't just a source of power. It was a test. And she was ready to face it. With one final, desperate push, Lyra broke free from the figure's grip, her feet landing firmly on solid ground once more. She turned to face Eldrick, who was staring at her in awe. "Go, Lyra," he urged, his voice filled with urgency. "Find the relic. It's the only way to save us." Lyra nodded, her heart steeled with resolve. She knew the road ahead would be perilous, but she also knew one thing for sure: she wasn't going to let the darkness consume her, or the village. Not without a fight. As she ran toward the ancient temple on the edge of the village, the figure's voice echoed in her mind. "You cannot escape fate, Lyra. The darkness will claim you in the end." But Lyra was no longer afraid. She had a purpose now. And nothing, no force, no entity was going to stop her from uncovering the truth. The village was in chaos. The once serene and peaceful surroundings were now consumed by the very force that Lyra had sought to understand. The earth trembled beneath her feet, and the sky above seemed to darken, swirling with ominous clouds. The figure, the shadow that had once loomed over them, had vanished into the void, but its presence lingered in the air, heavy with foreboding. Lyra's mind raced as she sprinted through the village square, the sounds of crumbling buildings and panicked villagers fading into the background. All she could hear now was the steady thrum of her heartbeat, echoing in her chest like a drum. She had no time to waste. The relic, the artifact, her father's last legacy, was the only hope the village had left. She didn't know exactly what she was looking for or where it was hidden, but she knew it was connected to the ancient temple at the edge of the village. Her father had often spoken of it in hushed tones, mentioning the power that slumbers beneath the earth. She didn't understand the full meaning of his words, but now, as the village crumbled around her, they seemed to carry a weight of truth. Lyra reached the temple gates, which were overgrown with vines and moss. The structure itself was ancient, a crumbling ruin that had once been a place of worship. Now, it was nothing more than a dark, foreboding shell. She could feel the weight of the place, its history pressing down on her, as if the very stones themselves were alive, watching her with silent eyes. With a deep breath, she pushed open the heavy wooden doors, which creaked eerily on their hinges. The inside of the temple was shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from the faint glow of the torches that lined the walls. But even that light seemed weak, flickering as if struggling to exist in the presence of something far more powerful. Lyra's eyes scanned the room, taking in the faded murals that adorned the walls. They depicted strange, mythical creatures, some of which she recognized from her father's journals, beasts from legends long forgotten. But the more she looked, the more she realized that these images weren't just stories. They were warnings. At the center of the room was a large stone pedestal, covered in dust and cobwebs. It looked ancient, and yet, as Lyra stepped closer, she felt an overwhelming sense of familiarity. She couldn't explain it, but she knew, deep down, that whatever her father had sought was here, beneath the surface, waiting for her to unlock it. Lyra knelt before the pedestal, her fingers brushing the stone. As soon as they made contact, a low rumble echoed through the temple. The ground trembled once more, and the air grew thick with energy, as if the very temple itself were awakening. Suddenly, the stone surface began to shift, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, nestled within a bed of old, tattered cloth, was a small, intricately carved box. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. This was the artifact her father had spent his life searching for. But as she reached for the box, a cold wind swept through the temple, extinguishing the torches and plunging the room into darkness. The temperature dropped sharply, and Lyra could feel the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. The air was thick with an oppressive force, as though something was watching her, waiting for her to make her move. A low, menacing laugh echoed through the temple, sending a chill down Lyra's spine. She knew immediately who it was. The figure that had attacked the village, the one who had been watching her since the moment she set foot in this cursed place. It was here, and it wasn't going to let her take the artifact without a fight. You think you can stop this? The voice was cold, malevolent, and it seemed to reverberate from all directions. You think you can control the darkness? Lyra spun around, her heart racing as she searched for the source of the voice. But there was nothing, only the darkness pressing in on her from every side. You are too late, the voice continued, growing louder. The relic is mine. You have no place in this world, no purpose here. Lyra felt the weight of those words. The figure, whatever it was, knew who she was. It knew her history, her father's legacy, and the pain that drove her to this moment. But she couldn't let fear consume her now. Not when the world was at stake. Then show yourself, Lyra challenged, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her throat. Let's see if you're as powerful as you think you are. There was a long pause, and then the figure materialized before her, a shadowy form, its face obscured by a dark hood. Its eyes gleamed a blood red, and its presence was suffocating, like a dark cloud pressing down on everything around it. "I am the guardian of the relic," the figure said, its voice a twisted mockery of humanity. "And you, Lyra, are nothing more than a pawn in a game far greater than you can comprehend." Lyra took a step back, her eyes locked on the figure. She could feel the power radiating from it, but she wasn't afraid. She had come too far to back down now. Her father's research had led her here for a reason. She had to finish what he started. "I will stop you," Lyra said, her voice filled with resolve. "I don't care who or what you are. You won't have this world." The figure laughed again, the sound grating and unnatural. "You think you can defeat me? The darkness cannot be stopped. It will consume everything, every life, every soul. You are nothing in the face of it." With that, the figure raised its hand, and the temple began to shake violently. The walls cracked, and the floor splintered beneath Lyra's feet. She stumbled, but she held her ground. This was it. The final battle was beginning. Lyra reached for the box, her fingers trembling as she lifted it from the pedestal. The moment she touched it, a surge of energy flooded her body, and the ground beneath her cracked open, sending her tumbling into the abyss below. The last thing she saw before the darkness consumed her was the figure's glowing red eyes, watching her fall, its laughter echoing through the void. The world around Lyra spun in chaotic disarray as the darkness swallowed her whole. The sensation of falling, of weightlessness, was dizzying. Every inch of her body seemed to be pulled into the abyss, a cold, suffocating void where nothing felt real. Her mind raced, struggling to hold on to her purpose, to the mission her father had entrusted to her. But the dark force that enveloped her pressed in from all sides, threatening to tear her apart. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the fall stopped. Lyra gasped for air, her lungs burning as if she had been submerged in ice-cold water. She opened her eyes, blinking against the unfamiliar darkness, and found herself lying on the cold stone floor of what seemed like a cavernous chamber. The air was thick with an unnatural heaviness, and the oppressive silence was broken only by the faintest whispers that seemed to echo from every corner of the room. As she slowly pushed herself up, Lyra realized that she was no longer in the temple. The walls of the chamber around her were smooth, polished stone, and faintly glowing symbols were carved into the floor, their patterns shifting and changing as if alive. The very air seemed to hum with energy, and Lyra could feel the power of the place, its dark presence pressing down on her like a heavy weight. She stood cautiously, scanning her surroundings. The chamber was vast, and in its center stood a tall, obsidian pedestal. Upon it rested a small, ornate box, the same one she had seen in her father's journal. The relic. Her heart raced as she took a step forward, drawn to the pedestal with an unexplainable force. The closer she got, the stronger the pull became, as if the relic itself was calling to her. But as her hand hovered above the box, a voice, cold and malevolent, filled the chamber. You are too late, Lyra. The voice was familiar, its tone dripping with contempt. Lyra spun around, her heart pounding as she searched for the source. From the shadows, the figure emerged once more, its face obscured by a dark hood, its eyes glowing a deep crimson. You've come this far, the figure continued, its voice echoing through the chamber. But you cannot stop what has already begun. The darkness is awakening, and the relic you seek will only make it stronger. There is no turning back now. Lyra's pulse quickened as she took a step back. Why are you doing this? She demanded, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and defiance. What do you want? The figure stepped forward, its form shimmering and shifting like smoke. I want nothing, it replied, its voice laced with malice. I am simply the servant of a force far greater than you could ever comprehend. You, Lyra, are merely a pawn in a game that was set in motion long before your father ever stepped foot in these mountains. Lyra's mind raced. Her father's research, the mysterious deaths, the strange occurrences in the village, they were all connected to this force, to the relic. But what was this greater force? And why had her father been searching for it? What is this force? Lyra demanded, her voice steady despite the growing terror in her chest. And why is it tied to the relic? The figure's lips twisted into a cruel smile. The force you speak of is ancient, older than your kind. It is the darkness that slumbers beneath the earth, the very essence of chaos and destruction. The relic you seek is the key to unlocking its power. Your father understood this, but he was too weak to control it. He died trying. Lyra felt a surge of anger and determination flood her chest. She wasn't going to let her father's death be in vain. She wasn't going to let this being or whatever it represented win. I won't let you destroy everything, Lyra said, her voice sharp with conviction. I will stop you. The figure laughed, a low, hollow sound that sent a shiver down her spine. You cannot stop what has already been set in motion. The darkness is coming, Lyra. And you. You are the one who will bring it into the world. Lyra felt a cold chill run through her as the figure's words sank in. She had come here seeking answers, seeking a way to stop the terror that had plagued her village, but now, it seemed she was no closer to finding a solution. Instead, she had uncovered a dark, terrifying truth. The relic. The artifact her father had been searching for, it wasn't just a tool for power. It was a conduit, a bridge between worlds. And the darkness that it was tied to was far more powerful than anything she could have ever imagined. Before she could react, the figure moved with lightning speed, its hand reaching for the relic. Lyra's instincts kicked in, and she dove forward, slamming her palm against the pedestal in an attempt to stop it. But as soon as her hand touched the stone, a surge of energy exploded outward, knocking her back across the chamber. She landed hard, her vision blurring as the world around her seemed to spin. She could feel the darkness closing in, its presence suffocating, its weight unbearable. She had to act fast. She had to stop this before it was too late. Lyra scrambled to her feet, her eyes locked on the figure as it raised its hand to claim the relic. It was too late to stop it, but perhaps there was another way. Her father's journal had mentioned something, a final key to controlling the relic, but the details had always been vague, hidden in cryptic passages. Desperation clawed at her, but then, just as the figure's hand touched the relic, she remembered a passage from the journal, "Only when the blood of the one who seeks the relic mingles with its essence will the power be revealed." Her heart stopped. Blood. The answer was in her blood. With trembling hands, Lyra reached into her pocket, pulling out the small, jagged knife her father had left her. It was a relic of its own, old and worn, its blade still sharp. Without hesitation, she pressed the knife to her palm, wincing as the sharp metal cut into her skin. Blood dripped down her fingers, splattering onto the stone pedestal beneath the relic. As her blood touched the surface, the entire chamber seemed to come alive. The walls trembled, the ground shook, and the symbols on the floor began to glow with an eerie, otherworldly light. The figure recoiled, its eyes widening in shock and fear. "No." The figure hissed. "You are not meant to control it. You are not its master." But it was too late. The relic began to glow with an intense, blinding light, and Lyra felt the power of it surge through her veins. It was overwhelming, like a tidal wave of pure energy, and for a moment, she thought she might be consumed by it. But she held on, her will stronger than the darkness that tried to claim her. She focused on the relic, on the power that surged within her, and in that moment, she understood. She wasn't just a pawn in this game. She was the key to unlocking the truth and to stopping the darkness from consuming everything. With a final, desperate cry, Lyra slammed her palm onto the relic, unleashing the full force of its power. And then, everything went silent. The moment Lyra's hand connected with the relic, she felt a rush of power surge through her body. It wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, as if her very essence was being intertwined with the relic itself. Her heart pounded, but there was no fear, only a deep sense of purpose. She had finally unlocked what her father had died trying to understand. But the power was overwhelming. Her vision blurred, and she staggered, gripping the pedestal to steady herself. The air around her crackled with energy, and the walls of the chamber began to tremble. The ground shook beneath her, the ancient stone creaking as if it were alive. For a moment, she feared she would be consumed by the force. But just as quickly as it had begun, the energy stabilized, and she felt the relic's power settle within her. It wasn't just a connection, it was a bond, one that tethered her to the very heart of the darkness she had sought to defeat. But Lyra didn't have time to process the enormity of what had just happened. The figure, her enemy, was still in the chamber, reeling from the force of the relic's awakening. Its eyes burned with fury, its voice low and menacing. "You think you've won?" The figure hissed. "You have no idea what you've unleashed." The darkness is not yours to control. It will consume you just as it consumed your father. Lyra's heart skipped a beat at the mention of her father. She clenched her fists, steeling herself against the wave of emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. "I won't let it happen," she said, her voice steady. "I will stop this." The figure's laughter echoed in the chamber, hollow and mocking. "You cannot stop what is already in motion. You think you can wield this power. You're nothing but a child, playing with forces beyond your comprehension." Lyra's gaze hardened. She wasn't a child anymore. She had seen what the darkness could do, and she had watched as it consumed everything she loved. She wouldn't let that happen again. The figure took a step forward, its form shifting, melting into the shadows. "You are too late," it whispered. "The relic has already chosen its true master. And that master is not you." With a flick of its hand, the air around Lyra grew heavy, thick with darkness. It pressed in on her from all sides, suffocating, like an invisible force trying to crush her very will. Her vision blurred again, but this time, the sensation wasn't just physical. She could feel her mind being torn apart, as though the darkness was clawing at her thoughts, trying to rip them away. But Lyra fought back. She wouldn't let it take her. She couldn't. Her father had believed in her, and she would honor that belief, no matter the cost. Drawing on the strength of the relic, she pushed back against the darkness, forcing the pressure to lessen. Slowly, she rose to her feet, the light from the relic's glow illuminating the chamber. She could feel its power pulsing within her, and she realized something then. The darkness wasn't just a threat, it was part of her. The relic had chosen her, and she had the strength to wield it. The figure stepped out from the shadows, its form becoming solid once more. But now, it seemed more fragile, as though the power it had wielded for so long was no longer as strong. "You think you can defeat me?" It snarled, its eyes blazing. "I am the darkness. I have been around long before your father even knew of this place. You cannot." "I don't have to defeat you," Lyra interrupted, her voice filled with newfound confidence. "I just have to stop you." Before the figure could react, Lyra raised her hand, the energy from the relic surging through her like a storm. The chamber lit up with blinding light as the power of the relic exploded outward, engulfing the figure. It howled in fury, but its voice was swallowed by the sound of the power colliding with it, a deafening roar that shook the very foundation of the temple. The ground cracked beneath Lyra's feet, and she stumbled, her legs weakening from the strain. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Not when the world depended on her. The figure let out one final scream, its form disintegrating into the air, dissolving into the very shadows it had come from. Lyra stood tall, her chest heaving with exhaustion, but her mind clear. The darkness had been defeated, for now. But she knew it wasn't over. The relic had awakened, yes, but it had also revealed something else to her, there was more to this power than she could ever have imagined. The force that had tried to consume her, the force that had been manipulating her from the shadows, it was still out there, still watching. And now, she was its target. The chamber was silent once more. The light from the relic dimmed, and Lyra's body began to tremble with the aftermath of the battle. She knew she couldn't stay here much longer. She had to leave, to regroup, to understand what the relic truly was and how to wield its power. With one last glance at the pedestal, Lyra turned and made her way toward the exit, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. The darkness had been driven back, but it would return. And when it did, she would be ready. She had to be. Lyra's footsteps echoed in the cavernous hallway as she made her way back to the village. The relic hummed softly in her possession, its power still pulsing through her veins, but now, she felt the weight of responsibility pressing on her chest. She had stopped the dark entity that had threatened her village, but she knew that was only a temporary victory. The power of the relic had been awakened, and now it was tied to her, its energy coursing through her like a silent storm. But that wasn't all. As the figure had dissolved into the shadows, Lyra had glimpsed something, a vision, something hidden beneath the surface of the relic. The faces of ancient warriors, their eyes filled with sorrow and pain, flashed before her. A voice had whispered in her ear, a voice that spoke of a time long before the world had known light. It had warned her of a coming storm, of a power that would rise again and seek to reclaim what was lost. The vision had faded as quickly as it had come, leaving Lyra with more questions than answers. What had she seen? And why had the relic shown it to her? Was it a warning? Or was it an omen of what was to come? The village seemed eerily quiet as Lyra returned. The streets were empty, and the once thriving marketplace was now abandoned, with only the faintest traces of life remaining. The villagers had fled, terrified by the chaos and destruction that had befallen them. Even now, as the sun began to set behind the mountains, there was an air of unease that hung over the village. Lyra made her way to her father's old workshop, the place where he had spent countless hours researching the relic. She hadn't been there in years, not since his disappearance, but it felt like the only place where she might find some answers. The door creaked open, and Lyra stepped inside, her heart heavy with memories. The workshop was just as she remembered it, cluttered with old books, strange artifacts, and scattered papers. But now, it felt different. The air was thick with the scent of dust and time, and the once welcoming space now seemed cold and oppressive. She moved toward her father's desk, where a collection of old journals and books lay open. The first journal she picked up was her father's personal record, the one he had kept when he first began his research into the relic. She flipped through the pages, searching for something, anything that could shed light on what she had just experienced. And then, she found it. A single line, written in bold letters, "The relic is the key to awakening the darkness. But the darkness will not be tamed by a single soul. It will consume all that is pure and rise again, stronger than ever before." The words sent a chill down her spine. Her father had known about the darkness, about the power of the relic. But why hadn't he told her? Why hadn't he prepared her for this? The answer came to her in a flash. He hadn't known how to stop it. He had tried to control the relic, to study its power, but he had failed. And now, it was up to her to finish what he had started. Lyra closed the journal with trembling hands and set it aside. She couldn't afford to dwell on the past. There was too much at stake now. The figure may have been defeated, but it was clear that the darkness was far from gone. It had merely retreated, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps broke through her thoughts. Lyra spun around, her heart pounding in her chest, her hand instinctively reaching for the relic at her side. But it was only a familiar face, Vi, her trusted friend and companion, standing in the doorway. Lyra, Vi said softly, her eyes filled with concern. I heard what happened. Are you all right? Lyra nodded, though she wasn't sure if she could answer truthfully. I'm fine. But the village, it's not safe. The darkness is still out there, waiting to rise again. Vi stepped forward, her brow furrowed. What do you mean? I thought you stopped it? I did, Lyra said, her voice heavy with uncertainty. But I think it's only just begun. The relic has been awakened, and now I'm its bearer. I don't know what that means, but I have to find out. I have to stop this before it's too late. Vi's eyes softened with sympathy. You don't have to do this alone, Lyra. We're all in this together. Lyra looked at her friend, her heart swelling with gratitude. But she couldn't allow herself to be distracted by sentiment. She had to focus. The world was teetering on the edge of destruction, and she was the only one who could stop it. I know, Lyra said, her voice steady. But I have to go. I have to understand what the relic truly is. My father's journal, it said something about a darkness that can't be controlled. That it will consume everything, even those who wield it. I don't know if I can stop it, but I have to try. Vi nodded slowly. Then let me help you. We'll find the answers together. Lyra hesitated. She had always relied on herself, on her strength and her determination. But this was different. This was a force that had existed for millennia, one that couldn't be stopped by mere willpower alone. All right, Lyra said, her voice firm. But we have to leave now. We don't have much time. Vi smiled, a glint of determination in her eyes. Lead the way. The two of them set out into the night, the moon hanging high in the sky as their only guide. Lyra knew the journey ahead would be dangerous, but she couldn't stop now. She had seen the truth: the darkness was rising, and it would take everything she had to stop it. As they walked, the shadows seemed to stretch around them, whispering promises of destruction. But Lyra was no longer afraid. She had faced the darkness once, and she would face it again, this time with the knowledge and strength to destroy it once and for all. But as they walked deeper into the night, Lyra felt a sudden chill run through her. It was subtle at first, like a whisper on the wind. But then, it grew stronger, more insistent. She stopped in her tracks, her eyes darting around, searching for the source. And that's when she saw it, a figure, cloaked in shadow, watching them from the edge of the trees. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest as she felt the presence of the shadowy figure lurking just beyond the trees. It wasn't the same as the figure she had faced in the chamber, it was different. This one was watching them, waiting for something. Its eyes, though obscured by the night, burned with an intensity that seemed to reach into her very soul. Vi noticed the change in Lyra's demeanor instantly, her sharp eyes scanning the surrounding darkness. "Lyra?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but there was a note of concern in it. Lyra didn't answer immediately. Her instincts were on high alert. The relic thrummed lightly against her side, as if in response to the approaching danger. The energy it radiated felt different now, heavier, as though it were trying to warn her of something yet unseen. But Lyra knew one thing for certain: they weren't alone. She motioned for Vi to stay silent and slowly, almost imperceptibly, reached for the blade she had at her side. The air around them grew colder, and the whispers grew louder in her ears, like an endless chant of forgotten souls. The darkness that surrounded them wasn't just the absence of light, it felt alive, as if the very air was thick with it. "Who's there?" Lyra called into the shadows, her voice steady despite the rising dread in her chest. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, the figure moved, stepping out from the shadows with an eerie grace. Lyra's eyes narrowed as the figure slowly came into view. The hood was drawn low, but the figure's eyes, those deep, crimson eyes, glowed like embers, burning with a dark power that sent a chill down her spine. "I knew you would come, Lyra." The figure's voice was like velvet, smooth but laced with venom. "You are too late, though. The darkness is already upon us. The relic will be the final key." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. The darkness. The relic. This was no coincidence. The figure in front of her wasn't just some rogue sorcerer or follower of the dark force, it was something far worse. It was a manifestation of the very thing she had sought to stop. "You're wrong," Lyra said, her voice cutting through the heavy air. "I won't let you unleash it. Whatever you're planning, I won't let it happen." The figure laughed softly, the sound echoing in the air like a distant storm. "You have no choice. You cannot control the relic. You are its vessel, Lyra, just as your father was. You will see that you are but a pawn in this game. The relic will decide its true master, and that master is me." The air around them seemed to crackle, and for a moment, Lyra could feel the power of the relic surge, as though it were resonating with the figure's dark presence. But then, something shifted. A pulse of energy, a pulse of light, cut through the darkness like a beacon. Lyra felt it. The relic was reacting against the figure. No, Lyra whispered under her breath, understanding suddenly dawning upon her. This wasn't just a fight for control of the relic. It was a battle for its very soul. In that moment, the figure moved with unnatural speed, raising a hand toward Lyra. She barely had time to react as the air itself seemed to twist, forming into tendrils of shadow that shot out toward her like whips. Lyra leaped backward, narrowly avoiding the strike, and instinctively drew her blade. The weapon felt warm in her grip, its edge shimmering faintly as the relic's power coursed through her. She wasn't sure what she was capable of now, but she knew one thing: she wouldn't be caught off guard again. The figure snarled, clearly irritated. "You think you can stop me with that? You are nothing compared to the power I wield." Lyra didn't hesitate. She charged forward, her blade held high, and with a sharp cry, she swung it toward the figure. The blade met the shadowy tendrils with a crackling sound, and for a brief moment, Lyra thought she had struck the figure itself. But the shadows parted like smoke, reforming and swarming around her. Vy, who had been waiting for a moment to strike, seized her opportunity. She lunged forward, moving with a speed Lyra had never seen from her before, and swung her own weapon, an intricately designed staff, directly toward the figure's side. The staff crackled with energy as it connected, sending a shockwave of force that staggered the figure. "Now, Lyra!" Vy shouted. Lyra didn't need to be told twice. She focused on the relic, tapping into its power as she had learned to do in the chamber. The energy surged through her, filling her body with an overwhelming strength. Her sword gleamed with a bright light, and with a swift, powerful strike, she pierced through the figure's defenses. The figure gasped, its crimson eyes widening in shock. "No. This cannot be." But Lyra didn't hesitate. She drove the sword deeper, channeling the relic's energy into the blow. The figure's form began to disintegrate, melting into the shadows from which it had come, until nothing was left but a lingering darkness that quickly faded away. Lyra stood there, panting heavily, her body trembling from the exertion. The air around her was still thick with tension, but the immediate danger had passed. "Is it over?" Vy asked, her voice laced with concern as she approached Lyra. Lyra nodded slowly, her grip loosening on the blade. "For now. But this is only the beginning. The darkness. It's not gone. It's still out there, waiting. And it will keep coming until I can find a way to destroy it once and for all." Vy placed a hand on her shoulder, her gaze steady. "Then we'll find that way together. You're not alone in this." Lyra looked at her friend, her heart swelling with gratitude. For the first time since this journey had begun, she felt a glimmer of hope. They had just faced the darkness together and survived. But she knew the true battle was far from over. The relic had chosen her, yes, but it had also placed a great burden upon her shoulders. and the cost of wielding its power would be greater than she could ever have imagined. The wind howled through the trees, its eerie whistle almost like a warning. Lyra stood at the edge of the forest, staring out into the darkened horizon. The battle they had just fought felt like a fleeting victory, a brief flicker of light in the shadow of something much darker. She had defeated the figure that had threatened her village, but it wasn't over. The relic's power had awakened a force within her, and she could feel the darkness still lurking, waiting to strike again. By stood beside her, her eyes scanning the surrounding woods. She knew the weight Lyra carried. The darkness was never far, and with each passing moment, the power of the relic seemed to pull them both deeper into a web of danger they could not escape. But they had come this far, and neither of them was willing to give up now. "We need to find out more about the relic," Lyra said, breaking the silence. "We don't know what we're truly up against. My father's journal spoke of it, but it was unclear. The relic, it's not just a weapon, is it? It's a key. A key to something much older, something far more dangerous." By nodded, her expression serious. "The figure we just faced wasn't the only one looking for the relic. There are others, waiting in the shadows. And from what you've said about the relic's power, I think we both know it's not just any artifact. It's part of something much bigger." Lyra turned to her, her eyes sharp. "You think there's more to it?" "I don't think I know," By said, her voice unwavering. "We've seen enough to understand that this relic is a link between worlds, a key to unlocking something that's been sealed away for centuries. But it's also something that can be controlled, something that can be corrupted." Lyra's mind raced. Her father had always been cryptic in his writings, but now she understood. He hadn't just been researching the relic, he had been trying to understand its true nature, to prevent the dark forces from using it for their own ends. "It's not just the power of the relic," Lyra murmured. "It's what it can do. What it was meant to do." By stepped closer, her eyes searching Lyra's face. "You're thinking what I'm thinking, aren't you?" Lyra nodded slowly. "The relic is the key to unlocking something that was meant to stay sealed. My father, he tried to stop it. And now, it's up to me to finish what he started." The realization hit Lyra like a weight, but she refused to let it crush her. She had already come so far, and she would not falter now. They needed to find the answers. They needed to uncover the truth behind the relic, and fast, before the darkness could rise again. "Then we need to go to the temple," By said, her voice resolute. "The one where your father found the relic. It's the only place that might hold the answers we need." Lyra looked at her, feeling a flicker of hope. "Do you think we'll find something there?" By's lips curled into a small smile. "We'll find the truth, Lyra. I know it." The journey to the temple was long, and the closer they got, the more Lyra could feel the tension in the air. The relic had become an anchor inside her, pulling her forward, urging her to keep going, even as the darkness seemed to grow stronger with every step they took. As they approached the temple's entrance, a strange sense of foreboding settled over them. The air felt thicker here, heavier, as though the very earth beneath their feet was alive, watching them, waiting. The temple itself was ancient, its stone walls weathered by centuries of neglect. The once grand entrance was now partially collapsed, and ivy and moss clung to the walls like a shroud. Yet, despite the ruin, there was an undeniable aura of power that radiated from the temple, an energy that seemed to pulse in time with Lyra's own heartbeat. Lyra stepped forward, her hand instinctively reaching for the relic at her side. It hummed softly, responding to the temple's energy. She could feel it deep in her bones, the power that had been sealed away here. The same power her father had sought to protect. "This is it," Lyra said softly. "This is where it all began." By nodded, her gaze focused on the entrance. "We need to be careful. Whatever is inside, whatever your father discovered, it's not something to be taken lightly." Lyra didn't respond. She could already feel the pull of the relic, drawing her toward the heart of the temple. She had to know the truth. She had to understand what her father had found and why he had kept it hidden from her. They crossed the threshold together, and as they stepped deeper into the temple, the air grew colder, and the darkness seemed to close in around them. The walls were lined with carvings, ancient symbols that seemed to shift and change the longer Lyra looked at them. It was as though they were alive, telling a story, one that had been lost to time. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. It was as if the temple itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. And Lyra realized, with a shock that ran through her like lightning, that it was waiting for her. In the heart of the temple, they finally reached what they had been searching for, the altar. It was grand, made of stone that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. On top of the altar lay a large stone chest, its surface etched with the same shifting symbols as the walls. Lyra stepped forward, her heart racing. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the chest. The moment her hand made contact, a pulse of energy surged through her, and the chest creaked open, revealing what lay inside. A book. Ancient and worn, its pages yellowed with age, but its presence was undeniable. The book seemed to hum with the same energy that flowed through the relic. Lyra knew, in that moment, that this was the key to everything. She reached for the book, but before she could touch it, a voice echoed through the temple, sending a chill down her spine. "You've come far, Lyra," the voice said, soft and malevolent. "But it's too late." Lyra turned sharply, her hand instinctively going to the relic at her side. Standing in the doorway was a figure, cloaked in shadow, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. It was the same figure from before, the one that had sought to control the darkness. "You will never be able to control it," the figure said, its voice a low growl. "You are nothing but a pawn in this game." Lyra's heart raced, but she refused to back down. "I am not a pawn. I will stop you." I will stop the darkness. The figure chuckled darkly. You think you can stop it? You think you can control what was never meant to be controlled? With that, the figure raised its hand, and the shadows around them surged, rushing toward Lyra like a tidal wave. The figure's laughter echoed through the temple, its sound reverberating off the stone walls like a terrible omen. Lyra could feel the darkness closing in on her, suffocating her, but she refused to show fear. She had faced countless dangers, but this was different. The power of the relic surged through her like an uncontrollable tide, responding to the figure's presence. It was almost as though it recognized the figure for what it was, an ancient enemy, one that had been waiting for this moment. The shadowy figure raised its hands, and the temperature in the temple dropped dramatically. Lyra's breath became visible, swirling in the air like mist, as the shadows grew thicker, twisting around her, suffocating the light. You cannot win, the figure said, its voice low and menacing. The relic is mine, and with it, I will bring forth the darkness that has slumbered for centuries. Your father failed, Lyra. You will fail too. By stepped forward, her eyes narrowed with defiance. We're not backing down. This ends now. The figure's eyes flared with malicious intent. You have no idea what you're dealing with, it hissed, and with a swift motion, the shadows lunged forward. Lyra instinctively raised her sword, and a flash of light erupted from the relic, cutting through the darkness. The shadows recoiled, but the figure merely smiled, unfazed. You think that power will save you? The figure mocked, advancing toward her with eerie calm. The relic's power is limited. It is not enough to stop me. Lyra's heart raced, but she held her ground. The relic, now fully awakened within her, responded with a hum, as though urging her to trust it. She closed her eyes for a moment, reaching out with her senses, letting the power of the relic guide her. She could feel its ancient energy pulsing within her, a wild force she had only begun to understand. But she knew now she wasn't alone. The relic was a part of her, and together, they could confront this darkness. With a fierce cry, Lyra plunged her sword into the ground, and a burst of light exploded from the relic. The shadows screeched in agony as they were pushed back, their forms dissolving into the air like smoke. The figure staggered, momentarily blinded by the light. Is that the best you can do? The figure sneered, shaking off the light's effects. But there was a flicker of doubt in its eyes. Very well. Let us see if you can handle this. With a single gesture, the figure unleashed a torrent of shadow, a wave of darkness so thick it blotted out the very air around them. Lyra could feel it pressing in on her, squeezing the breath from her lungs. The relic pulsed violently within her, but the darkness kept coming, relentless and suffocating. She struggled to stand, the weight of the shadow bearing down on her. But just as she thought she couldn't bear it any longer, Vy rushed forward, her staff glowing with light. Lyra, you're not alone. Vy shouted, and with a powerful swing, Her staff released a wave of energy that collided with the darkness. The shadows faltered, their grip loosening as Vy's light cut through them like a blade. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the relief wash over her. She could feel the strength returning to her limbs. With Vy's help, the darkness seemed less overwhelming. Together, they stood against the shadow, a united front against the malevolent force that threatened to consume them. Lyra raised her sword again, this time with more confidence. We are not alone. We will not let you win. The figure's eyes flared with fury, but it only smiled. You think you can defeat me? I am the embodiment of darkness itself. I cannot be defeated. You are simply delaying the inevitable. We'll see about that, Vy said, stepping forward, her staff glowing brighter than ever. Lyra, this is it. Together, we end this. Lyra nodded, and with a final, powerful strike, she swung her sword toward the figure. The sword clashed against the darkness, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. The air was thick with energy, the clash of light and shadow, a battle that would determine the fate of the relic, and the world itself. The figure screamed, its form flickering as the light from the relic cut through it, disintegrating the shadow piece by piece. And then, with a final roar, the figure shattered, the darkness dissipating into nothingness. Lyra stood panting, her sword lowered, the power of the relic still humming within her. She looked around, and the oppressive weight of the darkness was gone. The temple, once shrouded in shadow, was now bathed in the soft glow of the relic's light. It's over, Lyra whispered, though she knew this victory was only temporary. The darkness would return, but for now, they had won. Vy stepped beside her, her face set in determination. This isn't over, Lyra. But we've taken the first step. Now, we find a way to stop it for good. Lyra nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of the truth. The darkness wasn't gone, it was only hiding, waiting for its next chance to strike. But with Vy by her side, and the power of the relic to guide them, she knew they could face whatever came next. Together, they would fight. The temple was silent now, the oppressive weight of the darkness that had once surrounded it lifting. The remnants of the shadow figure scattered like ash in the wind, leaving only the faintest traces of the malevolent energy that had once filled the air. But Lyra knew this wasn't the end. No, the battle had only just begun. Vy stood beside her, still gripping her staff, her eyes scanning the surroundings with cautious determination. It's over for now, but I have a feeling we haven't seen the last of that darkness. It's too persistent, too ancient. Lyra nodded, her gaze fixed on the altar where the relic had been placed. The power still hummed within her, an energy she could not fully control. It was as if the relic itself was waiting for something only it understood. The relic. It's not just a weapon, Lyra said quietly, more to herself than to Vy. It's a key to something far older, something my father tried to keep hidden. I need to know what it is. By stepped closer, her voice calm yet firm. And we will find out, Lyra. We'll uncover the truth behind your father's work. But you're right, this power, this relic, it's tied to something much bigger than we realize. Lyra glanced at the stone chest where the relic had been sealed. She felt an inexplicable pull toward it, an irresistible urge to uncover its secrets. She had always known there was more to her father's research than he had let on, but now, it felt as though she were standing on the precipice of something far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. She turned to By, her voice resolute. We need to go to the heart of the temple. My father's journal mentioned a hidden chamber, a place where the true origin of the relic is revealed. By nodded. Then that's where we'll go. But be prepared, Lyra. The truth might be more than we can handle. Together, they made their way deeper into the temple. The air grew colder as they descended into the heart of the stone structure. The walls were lined with ancient carvings, their symbols shifting and changing the longer Lyra stared at them. It was as if the very stone was alive, pulsating with a strange energy. They reached a large chamber at the center of the temple, a room that had been hidden from view, sealed away for centuries. The entrance was guarded by intricate carvings, symbols that seemed to shift and twist as they approached. Lyra stepped forward, her hand trembling slightly as she placed it against the stone. At once, the carvings parted, the stone sliding away to reveal a hidden passageway. This is it, Lyra whispered, her voice filled with awe. The passage was narrow, winding its way deep into the heart of the temple. The walls were adorned with more carvings, but these were different, older, darker. Lyra felt a strange unease wash over her as they moved further down, but she pushed it aside. She had come this far, and she couldn't turn back now. At the end of the passage, they found another chamber. This one was vast, filled with ancient relics and artifacts, many of them unfamiliar to Lyra. The air hummed with power, and in the center of the room stood a stone pedestal, upon which rested a large, ancient book. Lyra's heart skipped a beat as she stepped forward, her hand reaching for the book. It was the same book her father had mentioned in his journal, the one that held the answers to the relic's true nature. She could feel the power radiating from it, pulling her in. As she touched the book, a surge of energy coursed through her. Visions flashed before her eyes, visions of ancient times, of long-forgotten battles fought over the relic's power, of civilizations rising and falling, all linked by the dark force that the relic held. Then, the voice spoke again, this time clearer than before. You are the heir, Lyra. The relic is a key to the ancient world, a world that has been sealed away for millennia. Your father understood this, and that is why he tried to keep you away from it. The relic was meant to be a vessel, a means to unlock the gates to that world. Lyra recoiled, the weight of the revelation crashing over her like a wave. A vessel? What do you mean? What world? The voice was silent for a moment before it replied, its tone grave. The relic was created to hold the power of the ancient gods, beings who ruled before the current world. But over time, their power became too dangerous, and so it was sealed away, hidden from the world. Only one with the bloodline of the original creators could unlock it, and you, Lyra, are that heir. Lyra staggered back, the weight of the truth sinking in. She had always thought her father's research had been about protecting the world, but now she understood. He had been trying to protect her from the very thing that she had inherited, the power of the ancient gods, a power that could bring about the destruction of everything she had ever known. Vi stepped forward, her voice steady. So, what now? Do we destroy the relic? Can it even be destroyed? The voice responded, its tone tinged with sadness. The relic cannot be destroyed, but it can be controlled. If you choose to wield it, you must be prepared to face the consequences. The darkness that you have already encountered is only a fraction of what lies ahead. There are others who will seek the relic, and they will stop at nothing to claim its power. Lyra clenched her fists, determination setting in. Then I'll stop them. I won't let anyone use this power for evil. The voice was silent for a moment, and when it spoke again, it was filled with a sense of finality. The relic's power is yours, Lyra. But remember, every power comes at a price. You must decide what you are willing to sacrifice. Lyra's heart raced. She had no choice but to face what lay ahead. The darkness would not stop. The relic had chosen her, but it was a burden she would carry for the rest of her life. The chamber was silent except for the faint hum of the relic, still glowing softly in Lyra's hand. The weight of the truth she had just uncovered settled over her like a suffocating cloak. The relic wasn't just an object of power, it was the key to an ancient world, a world that had been locked away for centuries. And now, it was hers to command, for better or for worse. Vi stood beside her, her expression unreadable. She had been silent ever since the revelation. It wasn't that she didn't understand the gravity of the situation, she did. But Vi had always been the steadying force in their partnership, the one who didn't flinch in the face of danger. And right now, the danger was unlike anything they had faced before. Lyra turned to her, her voice barely a whisper. I have to do this, Vi. I have to stop what's coming. Vi's eyes softened, and she placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. I know you do. But remember, Lyra, the power of the relic is not just something you can control. It controls you just as much as you control it. The darkness, the evil, it's part of the relic's essence. It has always been. Lyra nodded, her grip tightening around the relic. She could feel the ancient energy coursing through her, a constant pull, a constant hum. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a force, an ancient force that had shaped the world for millennia. And now, it was in her hands. But the question remained, could she control it? Could she wield this power without becoming what she feared most? The voice from the relic spoke again, its tone softer than before. You have learned much, Lyra. but there is still more you must understand. The darkness that lies within the relic is not inherently evil. It is a force of balance of creation and destruction. It is up to you to decide how it will be used. Lyra's brow furrowed. Balance. Creation and destruction. Her mind raced, trying to comprehend the full scope of what the relic was capable of. What do you mean? How can something so destructive also be a force of creation? The voice replied, its tone calm and patient, as if it were explaining something to a child. Everything in the world exists in balance. Light and darkness, life and death, creation and destruction. The relic was created to maintain that balance. But over time, it was corrupted. It fell into the wrong hands, and its power was used for chaos, for war, for the destruction of entire civilizations. But now, it is yours. It is your choice, Lyra, to restore the balance or to tip it forever. By's voice cut through the silence. And if she chooses wrong? The relic's voice was almost sad. Then the world will fall into chaos once more. But if she chooses wisely, the darkness will be sealed away forever. The relic will return to its resting place, and the world will know peace. Lyra closed her eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She had always been a warrior, had always believed in fighting for what was right. But this was different. This wasn't a battle she could win with a sword or with strength alone. This was a battle of wills, a battle for the soul of the world itself. I didn't ask for this, Lyra whispered, the words escaping her lips before she could stop them. I didn't ask to be the one who has to make this choice. But I will. By stepped forward, her voice steady. We're with you, Lyra. Whatever you choose, we'll be by your side. Lyra turned to her, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. Thank you, By. I don't know what I'd do without you. By smiled, though her eyes were filled with concern. You don't have to do this alone. We've been through so much together. And we'll face whatever comes next together. The relic pulsed in Lyra's hand, its energy growing stronger, more insistent. She could feel it, the weight of her decision pressing against her chest. There was no turning back. Whatever path she chose, it would define not just her fate but the fate of the world. With a deep breath, Lyra stepped forward, toward the altar. The ancient book that had been revealed earlier lay there, waiting for her. She could feel the power of the relic guiding her, urging her to open the book, to understand its true nature. Lyra placed her hand on the cover of the book, and as she did, the pages began to turn on their own, as if they had a life of their own. The words written on the pages glowed with an eerie light, and as Lyra read, she began to understand the relic was more than just a weapon. It was a link between worlds, a connection to the gods who had once ruled over creation itself. She read the words aloud, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around her. To wield the relic is to wield both creation and destruction. To restore balance is to sacrifice a part of yourself, to give up what you hold most dear. The relic's power will be yours, but it will take from you in return. And once you make your choice, there is no going back. Lyra closed the book, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of the decision she had just made. She had chosen to wield the relic, to restore the balance, no matter the cost. But she had also made a promise to herself to never let the darkness consume her. Vi stepped beside her, her voice filled with quiet understanding. You've made your choice, Lyra. And whatever happens next, we'll face it together. Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with determination. I won't let the darkness win. Not now, not ever. With one final look at the relic, Lyra turned and walked toward the temple's exit. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain, the darkness would not win. She would stop it, no matter the cost. Lyra's heart raced as she stepped through the temple's massive entrance, her every instinct telling her that the final confrontation was near. The relic's energy pulsed within her, its power growing stronger with each passing moment. She could feel its call, the pull of ancient forces, urging her to embrace its full potential. But with that power came an undeniable truth: every choice had its price. Vi walked beside her, silent but resolute. Her unwavering presence was a comfort to Lyra, who knew that, no matter what happened, her friend would remain by her side. But Lyra also understood that the battle ahead would demand more than just strength. It would require sacrifice, something they all knew too well. The darkness won't stop, Lyra, Vi said quietly, her voice filled with both concern and determination. We have to end this. Whatever it takes. I know, Lyra replied, her voice steady but tinged with the weight of what was to come. And I will. I've made my choice. This ends today. They moved deeper into the temple, following the path laid out before them. The relic's power was leading them, guiding them toward the heart of the darkness that had been festering for centuries. The air was thick with anticipation, the walls echoing with the whispers of those who had come before them. The temple seemed alive, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for what was to come. Finally, they reached the central chamber. The air was heavier here, thick with the oppressive weight of the darkness that had taken root within the temple. And at the center of it all stood the figure, the one who had been orchestrating everything, the one who had manipulated the relic for their own twisted purposes. The figure was tall, cloaked in shadows, its face obscured by a hood. But there was no mistaking the power it radiated. You've come, the figure said, its voice low and cold. I knew you would. But you're too late. The relic is already mine. It has always been mine. Lyra's grip tightened on the sword at her side, the relic humming with energy in her hand. No, she said, her voice filled with conviction. The relic is mine now. and it will be used to restore balance, not to feed your endless hunger for power. The figure laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that sent chills down Lyra's spine. You truly believe you can stop me? You are nothing but a vessel. A puppet, bound by the relic's power. You think you can control it? But the truth is, the relic controls you. Lyra stood her ground, her eyes flashing with determination. Not anymore. I've come to understand it, to accept its power. And I'll use it to destroy you, to stop the darkness from consuming everything. The figure's eyes gleamed with malice as it raised its hands, summoning the shadows around them. The darkness surged, swirling like a storm, ready to strike. Lyra could feel the immense power of the relic within her, its energy building, but she knew that the figure's power was just as strong. The battle for control of the relic and the fate of the world was about to begin. By stepped forward, her staff glowing with light. Lyra, I'm with you. We'll face this together. Lyra nodded, the bond between them stronger than ever. Together, they had come this far. And together, they would finish what they had started. With a cry, Lyra raised her sword, and the relic responded, glowing brighter than ever before. The power surged within her, and she struck, the sword cutting through the shadows, shattering them with a burst of light. The figure staggered back, its form flickering like a fading flame. You can't stop this, the figure hissed, but there was fear in its voice now. You don't understand, this is bigger than you. It's bigger than all of us. I understand more than you think, Lyra said, her voice firm and unwavering. I understand that power like yours can never be allowed to control the world. I understand that the darkness must be stopped. The relic's energy surged, filling the chamber with blinding light. The figure's form began to disintegrate, the darkness evaporating like mist in the sunlight. But just as the figure began to fade, it reached out, its hand clawing through the air toward Lyra. No. The figure screamed. You cannot destroy me. I will return. You cannot kill the darkness. But Lyra didn't hesitate. With a final, powerful strike, she drove her sword into the heart of the figure, the relic's energy coursing through her and into the figure. The darkness screamed, its form writhing in agony, and then there was silence. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted, the power of the relic still thrumming within her. By rushed to her side, her face filled with concern. Lyra, are you okay? Lyra nodded, though her body ached from the strain. I'm fine. But it's over. The darkness is gone. For a moment, there was only silence. The temple was still, the air now free of the oppressive weight that had hung over it for so long. The shadows that had once filled the chamber were gone, and in their place was a soft, golden light, as though the very earth had been cleansed. By helped Lyra to her feet, her grip steady. It's over. We did it. Lyra glanced at the relic in her hand. The power that had once threatened to consume her now felt different. It wasn't the same chaotic force, it had become something else. Something she could control. But as she looked at the relic, a sense of finality washed over her. She knew that the battle was over, but the war was not. There were always more challenges ahead. The darkness was a force that would never fully disappear. But with the relic, and with the choices she had made, Lyra had the power to keep it at bay. And that was enough. Together, Lyra and Vi walked out of the temple, the sun shining brightly overhead. The journey was far from over, but for now, they had won. The darkness had been defeated, and the world was safe at least for now. Epilogue: The Legacy of the Relic. As the days passed, the world slowly began to heal. The temple that had once been a place of darkness and fear now stood as a symbol of hope. Lyra and Vi returned to the village, where they were greeted as heroes. But Lyra knew that the battle was never truly over. There would always be forces that sought to use the relic's power for their own ends. And there would always be darkness to fight. But for now, she could rest. She had chosen the path of light, and she would continue to walk it, with Vi and her allies by her side. And so, the relic remained a powerful artifact, a key to a world long hidden, and a symbol of the balance between creation and destruction. Lyra had inherited its power, but she had also inherited its responsibility. It was a responsibility she would carry for the rest of her life. And as the sun set on the horizon, Lyra knew that, for the first time in her life, she was truly at peace. Title: The Relic of Balance. Description: Lyra's journey begins when she unwittingly discovers a powerful relic, an ancient artifact imbued with both creation and destruction. As she uncovers its true purpose, Lyra is forced to make a decision that will determine the fate of the world. Alongside her loyal friend Vi, she must confront dark forces, powerful enemies, and her own inner doubts. The relic, which once held the balance between life and death, is now in her hands, and with it, a power that could either save or doom everything she holds dear. In a battle for control over the relic's energy, Lyra must decide whether to wield its immense power or risk letting it slip into the wrong hands. The path is fraught with danger, sacrifice, and the ultimate test of her strength. With every step, the shadows grow stronger, and the weight of Lyra's choices becomes more apparent. Can she master the relic's power, or will it consume her? The Relic of Balance is a thrilling, high-stakes fantasy adventure about power, friendship, and the eternal struggle between light and darkness.